Hi everybody, today we're going to look at some more database technology. We're going to have an introduction to relational databases. Relational databases are simply databases that have more than one table, and some of the tables in the database have some kind of relationship. I'm going to introduce this concept to you by looking at a real-world example. We're going to look at a website which sells soccer player cards to customers. So customers simply register their information with the website. I'm sure they just enter their name, maybe their address, their email address, and probably their credit card number. So they register themselves with the website. And then they can browse card information, which is stored in the website. And each card will have some related data. For example, the name of the player, the age of the player, maybe some statistics about the player, for example, a passing rating, a shooting rating, a tackling rating, just to make the card seem interesting. And then the customer will be able to order a card or cards. And I'm sure that when we store the order information, we need to know which customer stored sorry, let me just say that again. When we order a card, we need to know which customer ordered which card on which date. Okay? So those are some of the things that we're going to need to organize in our database design. So to look at how we might go about this, I'm going to show you an example of a database in Microsoft Access. Here we have an order table. This table records every order that was made by customers from people who registered with the soccer card website. So we can see that Mr. Shahad Sharif ordered Cristiano Ronaldo, who is from Portugal. He plays for Real Madrid and has an accelerator rating of 89, an aggression rating of 63, etc., etc., etc. So this table has information about the customers and information about the players, and together that information can produce an order record. Okay, does that make sense? Now let's say that Mr. Lee Kwong has just made another order. So his customer ID is CS_105. His name is Mr. Lee Kwong. Mr. Lee Kwong. And he lives in the Cricketers. Wait a minute. Just because Mr. Lee Kwong is ordering another card, do I really have to enter all of this information about him again? Surely all of his information is already stored in the website's database when he registered, right? This doesn't look right to me. My design doesn't look right. Anyway, let's just imagine that I've entered all of this data. And let's say that he is ordering a Luis Suarez card. So L.Suarez, who is 30, and Luis Suarez is from Uruguay, and he plays for FC Barcelona, and he has an accelerator rating of 80. Wait a minute. Just because Mr. Lee Kwong is ordering a Luis Suarez card, do I have to enter all of Luis Suarez's data again into the website database? No, it's already there. Mr. Lee Kwong could see all of that information when he was browsing the cards. So that tells us that the data is already available in the website database. We don't need to enter it again. So my approach to this problem is wrong, actually. I'm overcomplicating the situation, and I'm trying to put all of the data into one table. Really, what I should be thinking about is all of the card information should be in a database table. All of the customer's registration information should be in a different table. And all of the order information, every time a customer orders a player, that should be in another table. So actually, I think this problem requires 3 tables in the database. So let's go back. Let's just get some digital paper and think about this idea in a little bit more detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to design a table called players. and I'm going to make sure it has all of the fields necessary to store data about the players on the cards that I'm selling. So I'm going to have a player ID, which is unique for every player in the database. I'm going to have a name field, an age field, a nationality field, a team field, an aggression rating field, a passing rating field, etc. So I'm going to store all of that information in a players table. I'm then going to create another table called customers. Every customer will have a unique ID, for example, CS_101. Every customer has a name, an address, and probably a credit card number. Maybe an email address as well would be useful to store. So all of that information will be stored in the customers table. Now I also need to design another table for this problem, which will be the order table. So what the order table will store is every time a customer orders a player on any date, that information will be stored in a database table. I'm going to store the customer ID, the player ID, and the date. That is a record of the order. Now what I have to understand is the player ID in the orders table is related to the player ID in the players table. These are related. So in the orders table, if I see player ID 1, what that means is player ID 1 is Cristiano Ronaldo, who's 32 and Portuguese. And if the player ID is 2, well that means player ID 2 is Neymar, etc. In the orders table, if it was customer CS_101 who made the order, well, the relationship between these two tables will tell me that CS_101 is Mr. Shahid Sharif. Okay? So there is a relationship between this information in this table and the other tables in the database. So one thing I'm going to have to figure out is how to develop those relationships. Okay? Very quickly, this might be an example of what the orders table will look like. So as I just said, player ID 1 was purchased by customer CS100 on this date. Player ID 2 was purchased by the same customer on the same date. And player ID 1 was purchased by the same customer on a different date. So maybe he needed one more of those cards. What we have to realize is that at the moment in the orders table, there is no unique field. There's no order ID. Every record in the database table really needs a unique field related to each of the records. So what we need to think about is this. So what I'm saying here is this is my order ID field, and the first record will have an order ID of 1, the second record will have an order ID of 2, etc., etc., etc. These numbers will be unique for every record in the database. As we know, the customers table has a unique field, the players table has a unique field, and now the orders table has a unique field. Now let's get into Access and see if we can make any of this happen. I'm going to get rid of that because it's rubbish. I've already created a customers table and I've populated it with some data. If we go into my design, you can quickly see that these are the fields for the customers table: customer ID, title, forename, surname, etc., etc. And then I've populated it with some data already. Players. Let's just go into design view. These are all the fields for my players table. Quite a few fields. And these fields are going to store data related to all of the players in the database. And we've got loads of players. We've got 200 cards available for sale. Okay? So when the users log into the website, this data will help them browse through the different cards. Now what we want to do is to create a new table called, I'm just going to save this, TBL orders. This is the orders table. I'm going to go into design view, and the first field, which is my unique field, which is what that little key there is. Do you see the gold key? That means this field is unique. It's called the primary key. and I'm going to call this my order ID field, and it's just going to be an auto number. It starts at 1, then it becomes 2, then it becomes 3, then it becomes 4 every time we add a new record. So that's just an auto number field. Then we need the customer ID, which was text. For example, CS underscore 100, so that's text field. And we need the player ID. I can't remember what the data type of the player ID was. Let's go to table players, and we'll go into design view. The ID is an auto number as well, and it's a long integer. Now, because of the relationship between this field here and this field here, they have to have the same data type or it won't work. So if this is a long integer, this needs to be a long integer. So let's go back to my orders table, and let's find long integer. What's a number? Ah, yeah, there it is. Field size, long integer. Okay, got it. And the final one, I'm going to call it order date. And the order date is a date field. Yes. And I'm just going to format that to be short date. That one. That's the one that I want. That's fine. Brilliant. So let's go back to datasheet view. Save, yes. I'm ready to go. Awesome. I can start to populate this table with information. So for example, customer CS underscore 101 ordered player ID number 1 on this date. Okay, and there I have my first record in the table orders field. The problem at the moment is actually I haven't set up the relationships between the tables. So even though I'm saying customer ID CS101 is in this table, we don't know who customer CS101 is because we haven't connected it to the customer table. So let's do that now. In Microsoft Access, you have to close all of the tables before you mess around with relationships. So I'm just going to do that now. Experience is telling me to do that. Database tools, relationships, right-click, show table, customers, orders, players. There they are. Now I know that in the orders table, the customer ID is related to this field in the customers table. So I'm just going to drag it into there. And I'm going to click enforce referential integrity. Don't have time to talk about that today, but I'm just going to click it and create. And there we get the nice relationship. I'm going to do the same for the player ID in the orders table. It's related to the ID in the players table. They're related. Brilliant. Now let me show you the magic of this. If I've got time, I'm going to run out of time in a minute. I'm going to close that and save it. I'm now going to create a query. Let's go to query design. Customers, orders, players. Now what I'm going to do is, we already know that in my orders table we have this information. So I'm going to use my query to show it. So in my orders table, I'm going to take the customer ID, the player ID, and the order date, and I'm going to run that. That's the result. Let's go back into design view. But I also want to know the name of the customer, let's do the surname of the customer, and the name of the player that was bought. Let's do that and run. Ooh! So now we can see everything easily because of the relationships that we've just set up. And if all I have to do when I want to add a new order is type in the customer ID of the customer that made the order, the player ID, and the date of the order. And if I go back to my query and let's go back into design view and run it again, it tells me everything I need to know. That is a crash course into relational databases. Have a go.